Good morning, everybody. This is Daniel Whited in Denver, Colorado, and I have our resident doctor, Dr. Kurt Fisnick, with us today. He's an impact player, and he realizes that the world is his waiting room as well as it's your waiting room. And we have a topic today that probably is one of the best all-time topics of all times, and here's why. It's about prevention. And so a lot of people, they wait, Doc. A lot of people wait until they're thirsty to go dig their well. Well, when it comes to health, you can't do that because you get sick. Guess what? You do not have the energy or the whereabouts or the ability to dig your well when you're sick. So you got to do it now. And now's the time to prevent. And here's something that's been said for a jillion years by our parents and then their parents. An ounce of prevention's worth a pound of cure. That's kind of an English term and stuff. Not sure exactly the origin of it, but prevention is the key. Doc, good morning, and welcome to the call, buddy.
Hey, good morning, and welcome to everybody on the call. Sorry I was late. I was trying to resolve some issues with PayPal. Prevention really is the key. And like you said, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, and that really is the truth. Once you're sick, you've got to go back in and you got to get your system working right, and it takes longer. It takes longer to fix things. And sometimes maybe you can't resolve the issue at all. And so that's why we really need to focus on people doing prevention. And I listen to some of the local medical doctors in the area, and they say, they're doing preventative medicine by having people take, antibiotics and things like that. Well, that's not preventative medicine. That's treatment. And so, DW, I really thought it was a great topic when you suggested it last week. And my goal is this week is not only are we going to do it today, but during the week I'm going to bring on several other doctors that are going to share information on prevention. So back to you.
Well, we're kind of excited about this, the topic of prevention. You said something, this is what triggered it. I mean, Ray's been on this, I want to say prevention kick, but has been talking about it a long time. And then you said something a few weeks ago that solidified it with me, like being baptized in cement. And it was that if this and this is going on in your body, and I can't remember what you were referencing at that time, it was something pretty significant, you've arrived way too late to the issue. In other words, the breakdown was taking place a few years ago, and you've arrived too late. In other words, you're in serious trouble. And so we can do things now that can delay or support the body through some of those early on challenges. How many times, Doc, have we had phone calls just in the last month and or just this year, 2017? People call us with stage 4. Well, wouldn't you love to get that call pre-stage 1? And that's why there's some tests that you have available for people to get their hands on as well to find out kind of where you are and where your weaknesses are, and so we can get support in those weaknesses. So part of prevention, to me, and you can add to this or correct me if I'm wrong, is having some kind of map to look at to see the journey of the grandparents, parents on both sides, grandparents and parents on both sides, and see kind of what happened to them, to see kind of what might be some of your challenges that you possibly could go through. Some things, some weaknesses can be passed down, and we can support those with what we have here with Sisel.
You bet. Well, in DW, that's an excellent point. I mean, in the past, when in my clinic, people would come in and I do a medical history. That was part of the initial appointment. I'd ask you, I'd say, okay, DW, tell me a little bit about your family history. Do strokes run in the family? Do your mom or dad, have your grandparents, have any of your siblings had a stroke? Have they had a heart attack? Have they had any kind of cancer? And we would go through that because, not only do you inherit the, external, the looks of your relatives, but you also inherit the internal looks of the cells and the DNA. But they've discovered that, and this makes sense, that sometimes when we inherit certain factors from our parents or our grandparents, that the interaction between the paternal and the maternal genetics might create a totally new genetic trait. And so what I mean is that, you know, mom's genetics and dad's genetics might be so different that something there might actually trigger you to be more susceptible to a disease than what they were. And we find that'll happen a lot of times generations and generations down the chain. And so using various labs, I remember back when they finished the Human Genome Project back in 1999, I was going to seminars and nutritional seminars and health and wellness seminars, and a company out of North Carolina at the time was the first one to offer what they called genomic testing. And what they did is they took a sample of your blood and they took a sample of your saliva, and they actually mapped out your genetics, your personal genetics. So I could see, I had this done. It cost me about $2,500 at the time, and I could see, you know, what genetics Kurt Fisnick had. I didn't have to guess. You know, do I have my grandpa's genetics? Do I have my grandma's genetics on my mom's side or my dad's side? I could see exactly what I had. And what they did is they mapped it out, and they basically put it together in a form that was like an owner's manual. And I like to describe it that way because they call them SNPs. They're called single nucleotide polymorphisms. And what that really means is that those are the mistakes in your DNA. And so those mistakes then, they're not gonna trigger you to have that disease necessarily, right? Because what I try and tell people is those are the light switches. Those are the light switches in your body that if they get turned on, now you might have that disease. So, for example, a lot of people have the genetics for obesity. And there's a number of genes that trigger that. So there's not just one light switch. There's a whole bunch of light switches that can be turned on that will trigger obesity. So there's not one fat gene. There's a bunch of them that can lead to that. And there's various other ones too that we can talk about. But I'll use that one because that's an example that people can understand. And so let's say that you have a diet that's high in carbohydrates. Then what that'll do is that will trigger that gene to come on, and it might cause you to become obese because it's your body's way of saying that, hey, we suspect that in the near future, you're going to be going through a starvation period. So in order to prevent that, and this is what your brain, this is what your innate intelligence is thinking, how do we prevent that? Well, we'll store away a lot of fat. And that way, when the starvation period comes, now your body has stored away the fat, so you won't starve to death. And so they found that this particular genetic trait popped up because sometime in your family history, your family went through a great famine of some kind, you know, maybe Northern European, Irish, maybe Native American, and they found that these people all tend to have this genetic trait that can show up. And so then in today's world, with our abundance of food and really an abundance of processed foods, and processed foods have way too much sugars in them. And so what that'll do is it'll trigger you to have, you know, the condition of being overweight. So when we talk about prevention, then where does this come in play is that you can look at these particular traits that you might have, and all of a sudden now you know what you need to avoid, because these labs, the good ones anyhow, they will tell you what you need to do. So so using like I use Smart DNA, and what they'll do is they'll tell me, here, Kurt, you have this genetic that says that you have a trait for this. Here's what you need to do to prevent that light switch from being turned on. And so, like in my case, I know that from way back in 1999, almost 20 years ago, I found out that because of some genetic weaknesses in my liver and my detox part of my system, I need to increase my intake of different kinds of vegetables, like your Brussels sprouts and your cauliflower and broccoli, because they have an extract that helps process certain toxins that my body would normally have trouble. But they also told me, avoid these certain things, and you're going to lower that risk as well. And so that's really where I think prevention comes from. Is if somebody wants to find that out, just it's under $500 you can have that test run. But it goes further than that, DW, is that, and then using a couple of new lab tests that have been developed over the course of the last couple of years, we take a look and we go, okay, the two most common diseases that kill people in America are cancer and heart disease, and so a lab out of Indiana last year, they started offering a lab test, and they were recently bought out, so they'll be reoffering this lab test pretty quickly here under a new company. But what this lab test does is they take a couple samples of your blood, and they go looking for a particular marker that shows up only on cancer cells, because like when we look at different markers right now, like we go look for, say, CA19-9, which is a marker that's found in pancreatic cancer, there's a certain amount of the CA19-9 markers in your system normally, so you're healthy even if it shows up. And it's only when it starts getting out of range that they say, oh, now you have a problem. So you think about that, you already have to have the disease before it'll show up. And with this new marker test, with this Enox 2 test, it only shows up when there are abnormal amounts of cancer cells. And so when you take a look at this, what does it mean? Well, we can catch cancer a lot earlier. In stage 1, 80% of cancer is missed by traditional methods. In stage 2, over 50% of cancer is missed in stage 2 by traditional testing methods. And so that means that your chance of finding your cancer before it's stage 3, you got less than a 50-50 shot. And at 50-50, when your cancer's in stage 3, it's a lot harder to get rid of than, say, if they caught it in stage 2, stage 1. But this Enox 2 test, they can actually test and they can catch it in stage 0. And in traditional testing, you can't even detect cancer in stage 0. But stage 0 is when the cancer cells have started to accumulate together. They've started to kind of form a tumor rather than just being cancer cells, because each one of us, every one of us listening to the call, every one of us listening to the recording, we're exposed to, our body is we have cancer cells in us, and our immune system fights them every single day. Not only fights them, but kills them successfully. And there's hundreds of cancer cells that are killed every day. But when your immune system has a challenge and it can't keep up, and those cancer cells start to group together and it forms the beginnings of a tumor, that would be when it's in stage 0, and this test will find that, and then now you can make those changes. You can start being aggressive with nutrition, like we talk about with Sisel, and or maybe you want to do tradition. That's up to you if you want to do traditional methods, but I suggest using the alternative, and you can go after that. So in my way of thinking, that's true prevention. And then now we have, as of this last year, we have a lab test for the cardiovascular system that I can offer people that does the exact same thing. Well, if you can lower the risk of those two diseases, cardiovascular disease and cancer, that's probably 80 to 90% of where the healthcare dollars go is treating those two diseases. And so if you can do some really good prevention in those areas, you can really lower the risk of not only your healthcare costs, but you can lower the risk of healthcare costs in America by doing that. We'll see insurance costs come down. Hopefully we'd see drug costs come down and all of that. But DW, the one thing that I thought of is that, I know that you're proactive in your health. You don't wait until you're sick. What products do you take on a daily basis, or maybe there's some products you don't take every day, but some products you take weekly, and maybe there's some stuff that you don't take weekly, but maybe you take them monthly. What stuff do you take every day to help lower your risk of getting sick?
Well, Doc, first of all, the information you just gave us was absolutely fantastic, and if I could, I'd give you a standing ovation. It's absolutely incredible, because prevention is the key. So what Ms. Helen and I do is, especially since going through that necrotizing fasciitis soft tissue, that flesh-eating bacteria, it wreaked havoc on all organs in my body. And then the amount of stuff that the docs gave me to help fight it from their point of view and from their angle has still are reaping havoc. So one doc told me it'd be a few years before I'd get some of these antibiotics out. They had a brand new antibiotic that just had came out that they threw it in my system. And so they hit so I guess we're all muted now, cool. So the docs gave those to me and said it could be 3 or 4 years before you get those extracted out of your body. So here's what I do. There's seasonal things. So you ask a good question. Like going into fall, I make sure I take Avenger. And, just a tremendous product going into fall when people get colds and all that kind of stuff. Then going into hay fever season, I make sure I take a dose of it then. And then anytime I feel something coming on my body, like I did just a few days ago, I made the house extra cold and that kind of thing. And we're in a dry climate here in Denver. It's a high desert type climate. And I didn't turn the humidifier on to throw moisture in the air, which I usually do each night, or Miss Helen does for a couple hours, not very long, just enough to get a little moisture in the air. I didn't do that, so my throat got a little sore. And the next night, believe it or not, Doc, I didn't do the prevention on that, forgot again. So then I got real sore. And then a summer cold tried to come on, where back in the day, I'd run and have to get antibiotics and everything else to get rid of that. I just slammed, during that challenge, extra Avenger at it, Body Shield and Influence. Now, on a preventative basis, we make sure we do the Triangle of Life every single day, like clockwork. It's non-negotiable. It is just non-negotiable. It's not up for debate whether we do the triangle each day. I mean, it's one of the biggest mistakes you can make is not getting the triangle in your system every single day. For me, also, Body Shield and Influence is another game changer, and you know that based on what I've gone through. And I do have massive challenges with allergies and even food allergies as well. So we do that every day. I feel like another thing that has come on that's a big key for us is the Omega Plus, the Super Omega Plus, and the 4 Restore. These are supporting different areas of the body. I mean, just all the way from I want to make sure that we do the brain vitality every day as well. So we're taking care of our joints with Renovator. We're taking care of our brain with the brain vitality and the Super Omega Pluses, which also helps with just about everything the Omega Plus does. I mean, just everything out there. So those are the staple things that we make sure that we have each and every day. And believe it or not, I try to drink a shake every day to give my body that nutrition that I could never get. There's no way that you could get all that's in that shake in your system in any meal that we'd eat, or any 3 meals that we'd eat during a day, as what we have in our Sizzling, plus the proper amount of fiber, plus the proper amount of protein that gets in the system. And I'm about ready to turn the heat up on doing the Sizzle Greens as well, for those people that, do not want any kind of animal protein. The protein in that is derived from, plants and vegetables and so forth. So, Doc, those are the basic things that we do each day. Miss Helen, is there anything you want to add to that? She's shaking her head no that she can think of. Now, we take almost everything Sizzle has, but those are the things to where if we run out of some of the other stuff, then we just get it, when our home delivery comes, and kind of go from there, and we navigate around that. But the things I mentioned today are stuff we take every single day. They're a must-have. We get a lot of support in our system with the Inner Chi for him and her. That's a big game changer. Another one I wanted to add, too, that we take every day is Encompass 360. So we don't miss that. We want to get the proper iron in our system as well, and which obviously helps with the red blood cells and so forth. And a lot of people don't realize that our eternity and triangle of life, that is health and nutrition for the blood, period. And in addition to the Fucoidan helping with boosting our immune system, along with the Avenger body shield and influence. That's a lot there, Doc, but that's just what we do.
You bet. And I'm real similar to it. What I try and tell people is that when we start looking at the products, we know based on scientific research that's out there. I mean, they've taken and they've studied people. They take a group of people and they watch them over the years, and they've been doing this for decades. And they go, how many particular nutrients are they missing? And they found that over 99% of Americans are missing 5 or more key essential trace minerals. And like you say with trace minerals, you have to have them. You don't have to have very much, but you have to have them. And if you don't get these, the biological processes stop. It'll reach a certain point, and if you don't have enough of the particular nutrient, the particular mineral, the biological process will stop at that point. It won't proceed, and so that's a real good reason that you want to make sure and take the SpectrumX every single day. It's a real good reason that you want to take the Encompass 360 every single day, because there's key nutrients in there, minerals in there that your body needs. And what I tell people is that, if you're somebody that's into gambling, I mean, are you gonna bet your life on your diet? Are you gonna bet your life that your diet includes every single nutrient that you need on a daily basis? And if you will bet your life on it, I mean, good for you. I mean, you're better than most of us, because most of the people that I know, and I know a lot of scientific minded people, they don't bet their life on it. They take nutrients, even though they have the healthiest of diets. They take nutrients every single day because they know that they're going to miss something. And the studies that came out, they basically said this, is that, so, Kurt, here's what you're missing this year, and so then I make sure and I make a conscious effort to take those products. Then they retest me, down the road, and they found out, well, you did a good job of replacing those, but now you're missing 5 other ones over here. And so again, why would you take that risk? Why would you bet your life on it that you're gonna have that? The other thing is that we know that every single day you're exposed to toxins. Again, I mean, you can have the healthiest of life. You can be drinking water from the most pristine waters in the world, and you're still going to be exposed to toxins. And so that's a good reason to take the Fucoidan, because the Fucoidan, it's an extract from brown seaweed that helps pull toxins out. We've got it in the Fucoiden liquid nutraceutical, but we've also got it in the Body Shield, along with a couple other ingredients in there that will help pull out heavy metals and toxins out of your body. And then the Super Detox, I do that. I maybe don't do that on a monthly basis, maybe every other month. But, to pull those toxins out. And I do some other things as well, because I know that certain things in my lifestyle, I live here in North Dakota. There's a farm field right behind my house. What am I exposed to from that? Well, when those trucks are out there planting those fields, guess what they're doing is they're spraying fertilizers on there. And that fertilizer gets in the air. I breathe that. I can go on ewg.org, and I can look at the different toxins that I'm exposed to in my air. Here, you can do the same thing out in Denver and Littleton there. You can find out what are you exposed to. If there's a factory that's near you that has, plastic, they make things out of plastic, you're going to be breathing that in. I was working with a friend of mine, and they had a factory close to her where they made nuts and bolts, and so she was exposed to a lot of zinc. And so we had to come up with a plan for that. But then again, that's a way of doing some prevention. I know that certain kinds of heart disease run in my family, so I bump up the omegas every single day. I make sure and take the omegas. If I'm exposed to someone who's sick, this last weekend I was down at Mayo Clinic, and I knew that there's a lot of sick people there. It's Mayo Clinic. It's a hospital where really sick people go, and so I bumped up on all my nutrients. I made sure that I took extra. If I'm going to fly, I know I take extra Body Shield, because you're exposed to a lot more radiation when you're flying, because you're up in the atmosphere, you're closer to the sun, so you're getting a lot more radiation. Plus, those airplanes, they recirculate a lot of air, and you're breathing in the airplane fuel, the jet fuel, things like that. Again, just common sense says that you got to start looking at different things that you can do based on your lifestyle, and you can do some prevention. We know that this new product, the age pill that Tom's coming out with, I did a recording on it last Thursday, and we were talking about how this advanced glycation end products, what really is it? Well, it's when your glucose attaches to proteins, creating a cross-link between the sugar and the protein, and it reduces the functionality of the protein, so the protein can't do what it's supposed to do in your body, right? And so then these advanced glycated end products, they create a sludge in your cells, and think of it like having a bunch of mud in your cell, and so now your cell has to operate in a situation where there's a lot of sludge in there, and it's just not as efficient. So once we come out with this new product, this age pill, what it's going to do is it's going to help pull that sludge out, and it's going to make the mitochondria of your cells so that it can operate more efficiently. And that's why we're going to see people who are taking it are going to have a lot more energy. Talk about prevention. I mean, to me, that's just a great preventative type of a product, and a treatment product as well at the same time, because it's treating the condition, but by treating the condition, it prevents the disease. So that's really what we want to look at there. DW, I had asked Tim Proctor to also jump on the call. If you'd want to introduce him, and Tim will explain a little bit about what he's doing on a preventative basis as well.
Well, everybody, Tim Proctor is someone who's been exposed to Sisel, I mean, maybe going on 6 years, something like that. So he's been around the innovativeness of Tom Maurer and seen his vision when it comes to ingredients and when it comes to development of a particular product. All three of us, Doc and Tim and myself, seen Tom come on with a couple products that were derived from needs in the field, people that were going through challenge. And one of them was a product that's now called Avenger. It was originally called Sisel Immune, but it spoke too positive, so the Food and Drug Administration made Tom change the name, so he called it Avenger. And so we've seen that be developed. But, you know, Tim, what are you and Pam doing, and why are you doing some of the things that you're doing as far as prevention goes? And we know another great product for prevention too is TSX. That'll be for a different call. But however, Tim, can you get into that just a little bit? And good morning, sir. Welcome to the call, Tim.
Well, thanks for having me on, DW, and Kurt, thanks for asking me to be on as well. Yes, we've been with Sisel since it actually pretty much came here to the U.S. officially as a business. Over January will be 6 years, so 5.5, I guess you can say right now. And we have seen some changes. One thing that Sisel does, and Tom especially when he does it, before we had some products that were specifically for that works this area and one that does this area. And Tom decided, hey, let's see how those work together to incorporate it into one product. So, you know, number one, he's helping us save income on that by combining products, but he also makes them stronger. And into prevention, really I can't go in too much more because DW kind of went over everything because we take those as well. But a couple of other things that we do, we do the vital vision because our eyes, as we get a little bit older, and yes, I am getting there, that our vision starts to go a little bit quicker, starts to change. And what I've noticed on those is from going from one eye test to another eye test, my right eye has gotten a whole lot better. It used to be a minus 250, and it dropped, or actually went up to a better number. It is now at a minus 125. And for those that are with vision, I'm nearsighted, so far off things. I was having a problem with my glasses because things were fuzzy. And I went into the doctor and had it checked, and he said, well, it's because your eyes have changed. And normally they don't change that much. So that was a benefit for me. Also, you know, a lot of diseases that Kurt was talking about, the balance D that we have because of getting your gut health straight can help in a lot of different areas. So that product has helped out a lot with the balance D because of the prebiotics, the probiotics, the vitamin D that our bodies need, and the fiber that's in there. So that's helped out. The diatomic hydrogen water is something else that has helped. I know we're waiting for the AGE pill to come out because of some of the things that it can do with the cells and cleaning out the mitochondria. That's what the hydrogen water can do too. It goes in and cleans out the mitochondria. So those are products that we use on a daily basis. And one other, DW you mentioned, was the energy for him. For guys, that's something that we really need to take because it has protection and prevention from prostate issues. There's an ingredient in there that's a lot stronger than the saw palmetto that's out. I believe it's the super beta that's in there, and that's something that really does help our bodies. And so, Pam, the main reason I'm doing this too is 5 years ago or 6 years ago when we first got into Sisel, Pam was saying, hey, I really want you to get healthy. I want you to be around a lot longer. There is some issues in my family with heart issues. There's been cancer. So that was one thing she wanted me to do. And so with these products, I've been able to lose weight because of that. So that's helped alleviate some health issues. The products that Tom has that DW talked about, the Super Omega for heart issues, the Triangle for actually the whole body issues. So, you know, those things are things that we can do. And, you know, most doctors, and Kurt, I know you're on here, and there probably are several other doctors on as well, most doctors tend to treat just symptoms. And what Sisel can do is help put out there for the prevention of it so that we treat preparing the body not to have the issues that are there. So that's something that I'm really excited about with Sisel. And, you know, get in there, look at the products if you're just listening to this call, because we do talk about prevention because you're able to work your body by using these products that you don't have to worry as much about being ill. When I say that, also for the last 6 years, because of the Ficoidin product, I haven't had an illness in all this time being part of Sisel. If I start to feel something coming on, extra doses of Ficoidin, extra doses of Avenger, now that we have it, extra doses of Influence. So those all help us out. And if you feel something coming on, you can take care of it through your products that you have. So I hope that helps out, and with what I take and all. So back to you, DW.
It sure does help out, Tim, and you know, you drop some things in there. You want to look at your brain health. You want to look at your oxygen levels. You want to look at your joint health, and you know, your heart health, and especially energy. Energy is a really good indicator that something's going on, and so energy drops, boom. And you know, oldest daughter Danielle Lee's going through a high-risk pregnancy right now, and their iron in every pregnancy has been the same thing. It's always dropped a little bit. And so, and she once again reached out and says, Dad, what do I do to get my iron levels back up? Well, we have some stuff that can help her. That's, you know, pretty amazing, that can help her get those levels back up. And that's what we call support. And nobody helps and supports the team as much as Dr. Kurt Fisnick, and we honor you for that, my friend. We appreciate you for that. Any closing comments as we wrap this call up?
Sorry, I muted myself out.
I've been there, brother. Been there.
Yeah, I think the main thing that I just want to point out to people is that, you know, as you look at prevention, that really should be your key to your good health. Is that, you know, if you can't afford to do the DNA testing right now, you know, then what you want to do is you want to look at the two most common things, which is heart disease and cancer. Again, those are the two biggies in America. And according to the National Institutes of Health and the President's Council on Cancer, Mayo Clinic, a lot of different experts in the field, they're saying that toxicity is the major cause of chronic disease. So start doing something about the toxicity. Look at your environment. You can go on toxtown.com and you can look at the various toxins you're exposed to just based on what you do for a living and where you live. And you can go to ewg.org and you can look up, you know, the air quality and the water quality. I just got a postcard yesterday from the city of Fargo telling me that I could go look at the last reading where they actually measure the different toxins in our water here in the city of Fargo. And you can do that in your community by just going to ewg.org and you can look that up. And then get proactive with it. Don't wait until the chromium-6 in your water starts causing health conditions. Start doing something to remove it. If you've got lead, start doing something to remove it. If you've got a high-stress lifestyle, find ways of reducing your stress. You know, if you know that heart disease or diabetes or any of those things run in your family, you know, I mean, you just start doing things on a preventative basis based on the things that DW and I talk about on this call every single week. And so, DW, that's kind of my keys for today. And Tim, thanks for getting on the call and sharing about yours and Pam's. And DW, thanks for sharing with your lifestyle as well.
Well, it's a lifestyle. I mean, one thing you want to add to prevention is a little bit of exercise as well. That's one thing that helps all products work better, especially the sizzling and so forth. Just a little exercise. Park a little further away from your target when you go in there and the whole 9 yards. Don't be mad that when you go to the gym to work out, you didn't get the front row parking. Hello, you're there to work out. Take the back row and get yourself in there. Take a few steps. Skip the elevator. You know, steps don't have to be inspected. Elevators do. Just saying. So prevention, you know, one of the number one things is get a positive attitude. When you get a little something, don't go to immediately, I'm dying tomorrow. Go into, you know, man, I've got health, wealth, and happiness, and God's blessings on my life. So that's going to make a big difference as well. Everybody, that's it for the Doctor's Clinic call. And Tim Proctor, amazing job. Dr. Kurt Fisnick, you're absolutely phenomenal week after week. And, you know, we're just getting so much out of what you're bringing to the table. We love going to the table that you're dropping things on. So, because we're picking up what you're throwing, and we're picking up and we're catching what you're throwing and picking up what you're dropping at us. So everybody, that's it for the Doctor's Clinic. Thank you. Same time, same place, next week. Don't miss it.